Hello, so in this video what we're going to do, we're going to look at a group of different cells, different parts, okay, that are all specialised cells. But more than that, they're not just specialised cells, they're also the parts of the blood, okay. So most of them are cells, there are a few that are not, but we will talk about that when we get to them. So we're going to start off, we're going to be using for this video some of these giant microbes, okay, that's what the company's called that create these. This is a representation of a red blood cell. So hopefully you can see from the shape of it, it's called a concave disc. Okay, so it's got a flat bit in the middle and then it's got bulges around the edge. And the point of that is to increase the surface area of the red blood cell so that it can carry more oxygen around our body, okay? So that we're getting it to our cells so we can do respiration. These also have a few other specializations to them. They don't have a nucleus. They're one of the only cells in our body that don't have a nucleus. That again is to increase the surface area so it can carry around more oxygen. They also contain a special chemical called hemoglobin. Okay, and hemoglobin is what makes our red blood cells red. It gives it the red pigment. It's also what bonds to the oxygen to carry the oxygen around the body. Okay, and when the oxygen is bound to the hemoglobin, it makes a chemical called oxyhemoglobin, which is a slightly different shade of red. So the first part of our blood then is our red blood cell. The next part of our blood we're going to look at is actually our white blood cells, okay? And there's a few different types of white blood cells, but they all in general are there to help fight off microbes, fight off pathogens that could make us ill, and to help keep us healthy. So they're part of our immune response. And they can do that in 3 different ways, okay? So the first thing they could do is something called phagocytosis, which is where they will find the microbe, they will surround the microbe, and they will break it down. And they will send all the different parts that they've broken down to our body for us to use. So they'll break it down into proteins and things like that that our body can then reuse. So they are very, very efficient little recyclers. Then the next thing they could do is they can produce things called antitoxins. And what antitoxins will do is they will, as the name suggests, get rid of toxins. So toxins are nasty, nasty poisonous chemicals that some bacteria produce, some other microbes as well. And what the white blood cells do is they produce these chemicals that can stop those toxins from making us ill. The third thing that these can do is they can actually help us in our immune response with another one of these little microbes that I've got here, these blood cells, and this is an antibody, okay? And they can produce these antibodies, again, to help fight off different pathogens, normally to help fight off viruses, okay? You can see on our antibody, it's a Y-shaped protein, so it's made of protein, it's shaped like a Y, like the letter Y. It's got these little endings here with little holes in them, and these will all be specific shapes. So each one will only work on one type of pathogen, okay? And this specific shape will be different depending on the type of pathogen. So it could be a rectangle like this one here, or it could be a circle, it could be a triangle, but it will all be there to just work on the one type of pathogen. And this one here, you can see it's got a little molecule attached to it, okay? And this part here, our body creates is the antibody. This part here is the antigen, okay? So this will be the little bit that slips in from our virus, from our pathogen, okay, that our antibody is trying to attach around, and that'll stop the virus from being able to inject its DNA into our cells and therefore stop it from making us ill. So it's not going to kill the virus, it's just going to stop the virus from being able to make us ill. And then along will come our white blood cell again, and it will do the phagocytosis and break it down, okay? And then we'll be left with our antibody, but our antigen will be gone. So that's our white blood cell then. Then the next part we've got is this. This is a platelet. Now platelets are actually made of fragments of cells. So this will be, maybe it would have once been a white blood cell. We're just left over with this little bit of a cell. So it's not a whole cell, it's a part of it, and it's not living, okay? And these platelets are used to help us when we get damaged, when we get hurt, okay? And whenever you cut yourself, you might find that you get a scab formed over time. That is actually made up of these platelets. So what will happen if you cut yourself, then it will start to form something called a lattice. So you'll have proteins form something called a lattice, which looks like a net. And that net will cover up the hole that would be exposed in your body where you cut yourself. then the neck traps lots and lots and lots of these tiny little platelets in the blood, which starts to form the hard crust, starts to form the scab, which will stop, first of all, it'll stop your blood from getting out, so we're keeping it on the inside, but it's also going to stop all of the pathogens in the air, bacteria, the viruses, the fungi, from getting in and therefore making us sick and infecting us. So these are very, very important little things, that they're not cells, they're not living, okay? Then the last part of our blood then is our plasma. Our plasma is a liquid, so imagine that this is actually a liquid, like a glass of water, liquid, so it flows, it moves, it's not in one set shape, okay? And the plasma then makes up the majority of our blood, and it's actually slightly yellow in colour, but it is mostly clear, okay? So our blood itself is not red, it's the red blood cells that make it look red. The actual liquid part, the plasma, is clear yellowish colour, and this transports, helps the blood flow around the body, okay? And it also contains lots of dissolved nutrients, and also lots of dissolved waste products we want to get rid of. So things like urea that will go to the kidneys to be got rid of, okay? Also things like carbon dioxide, which we'll get to the lungs to get rid of, but also lots of minerals and vitamins and all of those good, useful, healthy things. Okay, so that was all of our parts of our blood, so we'll go back through them one more time. We've got our red blood cells, we've got our white blood cells, we've got our antibodies, which are created by our white blood cells. We've got our platelets. And lastly, we've got our plasma.